Good day everyone and welcome to this lesson. In today's video we'll be focusing on trigonometrical graphs. Now in this type of question you are not provided a graph, instead you are the one who will draw the graph. You'll be provided a statement, and in that statement you'll be given a trigonometrical equation which you need to solve in order for you to draw the graph and answer the question that falls under the graph or that comes after the graph. These type of questions are very important to master, for they are always allocated 6 or 5 marks, so getting those marks is very crucial. Let us consider the following question. We are told if negative 3 tan beta minus square root of 5 is equals to 0 and sine beta is less than 0, determine the value of sine square beta minus cos square beta with the aid of a diagram. The very first thing that you should notice here in this statement is that you are going to draw the diagram, for you have been told that determine the value of sine square beta minus cos square beta with the aid of a diagram, meaning that there is no diagram provided after this statement. These questions are very important to master. Now the very first thing you should deal with is the equation which you are provided, negative 3 tan beta minus square root of 5 is equals to 0. And the other important part is whereby you're told whether sine, cos or tan is negative or positive. Now in this statement you are told that sine beta is less than 0, meaning that sine is negative. Now this statement tells us where this graph is going to be drawn, on which quadrant. Let us consider the following trigonometrical equation. Negative 3 tan beta minus square root of 5 is equals to 0. And we are told in the bracket sine beta is less than 0, meaning that sine have to be negative when you draw your graph. You have this equation. The very first thing you want to do is make tan beta the subject of the formula, meaning that tan beta have to be left on one side and every other thing on the other side. So first of all, here you're going to transpose the negative square root of 5 to the other side. Now on the left hand side we'll have negative 3 tan beta is equals to positive square root of 5. Negative 3 is the coefficient of tan, therefore we're going to divide by negative 3 in order to cancel it out. Divide by negative 3 divided by negative 3. Tan beta is equals to square root of 5 and negative 3. Okay, so we now know that tan beta is negative, meaning that when we draw our graph, tan have to be negative. Tan is y over x, therefore we now know our y value and our x value. Now what we are going to be looking for is our r value. So our y value is square root of 5 and our x value is 3. Now we're going to use the theorem of Pythagoras, which says x squared plus y squared is equals to r squared. Square root of 5 squared plus 3 squared is equals to r squared. Square root of that, then r is equals to, this will give you square root of 14. So r is equals to square root of 14. Now that we know the value of y, x and r, now we can draw our graph. Now this is where sine beta is less than 0 is going to be important. Since we're told that sine beta have to be less than 0, this is what this information leads us to which quadrant our graph needs to be drawn. So on the first quadrant we know that all trigonometrical ratios are positive, therefore since sine is negative we cannot draw our graph on the first quadrant, so our first quadrant is cancelled out. Sine is negative, and on the second quadrant sine has to be positive, therefore we cannot draw our graph on the second quadrant. We can, so the only quadrant remaining is the third and the fourth quadrant. But remember on our equation, the one that we had at the end, which said tan beta is equals to negative square root of 5 over 3, and on the third quadrant tan have to be positive, therefore we cannot draw our graph on the third quadrant because tan have to be positive on the third quadrant. So the graph will be drawn on the fourth quadrant. But now remember, on the fourth quadrant, all the x values are positive and all the y values are negative. Therefore, we can conclude that x is equals to positive 3. Now we're going to draw a graph. The graph doesn't have to be drawn to scale. The labeling is the most important part. And the graph will always touch your x-axis, but will never touch the y-axis. Now you label, this is positive 3, this is negative square root of 5, and this is square root of 14. And you've drawn your graph. So now we're going to answer our question using the answers we got with our graph and our equation. So our question says sin square beta minus cos square beta. So we're going to replace sin with its trigonometrical ratio and cos with its trigonometrical ratio. So sin is y over x, y over r. So I'm going to write y over r, and this is all squared, minus by x over r, and this is also squared. Now we replace it with our values. So y it's negative square root of 5 over r, which is square root of 14, and these are all squared, minus by x it's positive 3 over r, which is square root of 40. This is also squared. Now from here you can either put this into your calculator or use your multiplication. So it will be your exponent. Negative square root of 5 to the exponent of 2, that will give you positive 5. This is over, this will give you 14 minus by 9 over 14. Now since the bases are the same, you are allowed to subtract the numerators. So 5 minus by 9 over 14. The final answer is negative 4 over 14. But negative 4 over 14 has a common factor of 2. So if you use the common factor, your final answer will be negative 2 over 7. And this is where you end. We are told in the following question, if 7 tan theta is equals to 3 and cos theta is less than 0, use a sketch in the correct quadrant to determine the value of sin theta plus cos theta over 2 sin theta without using a calculator. Now there are important parts in this statement which you should note. The equation, the place where you are told cos theta is less than 0, and the question which follows, sin theta plus cos theta over 2 sin theta. Now the very first thing we're going to deal with is the equation. Let us consider the following trigonometrical equation. 7 tan theta is equals to 3, and we are told that cos theta is less than 0, meaning cos is negative. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make tan theta the subject of the formula. So we're going to divide by 7, which is the coefficient of tan theta, on both sides. Now we'll be left with tan theta is equal to 3 over 7. So we've made tan theta the subject of the formula, and we have our x and y value, which is 3 and 7. Now we're going to look for our r value. We're going to use the theorem of Pythagoras to do so. The theorem of Pythagoras says x squared plus y squared is equals to r squared. Now we know our x is 7 squared. We know our y is 3 squared, which is equals to r squared. Now we're going to square root and square root. So r is equals to square root of 58. Now from here we're going to draw our graph. So we're going to do the very same thing. We'll start by eliminating quadrants which we are sure this graph cannot be drawn in. Cos theta is negative, therefore this graph cannot be drawn on the first quadrant as all trig ratios are positive. Cos theta is negative, therefore this graph can also not be drawn on the fourth quadrant as cos is positive on the fourth quadrant. Now we're only left with the second quadrant and the third quadrant. Now on our final equation, we had tan theta is equals to 3/7, and tan is positive. And tan is positive on the third quadrant, meaning that our graph will be drawn on the third quadrant. But remember, on the third quadrant, all the x values are negative and all the y values are also negative. Therefore, we'll manipulate our equation and conclude that x is -7, y is -3, but r doesn't have to have a sign. So I want to draw our graph from the origin. This graph doesn't have to be drawn to scale. The labeling is the most important part. So this is our r, which is square root of 58. Our x, which is -7, and our r, which is our y, which is -3. Now I want to use our values to answer the question sine theta plus cos theta over 2 sine theta. We know that sine theta is y over r, so y over r plus x over r over 2 y over r. Now we're going to replace our variables with the values that we got before drawing our graphs. So y is -3, so it's -3 over r, which is square root of 58. This will be added to -7 over r, which is also square root of 58. And this is over 2 times of -3 over square root of 58. Now you can see that the denominators are the same, therefore we can add the numerators. So in the numerator we'll now have -10, which will be over square root of 58, and this will be over 2 will be turned into a fraction, so we're gonna have 2 over 1, which will multiply with the denominator. So 2 multiplied by -3, that will give us a -6, and the denominator will still be square root of 58. From here we can represent the line of a fraction as a division. So in the next step we'll have -10 over square root of 58 divided by -6 over square root of 58. Now we cannot divide fractions, so we're going to turn that sign into multiplication. So -10 over square root of 58 multiplied by, you use the reciprocate of this, so now square root of 58 will be the numerator and -6 the denominator. So now we're going to multiply the numerator with the numerator, denominator with the denominator. So the answer here in the numerator, it will be 10 square root of 58, which is over -6 square root of 58. Now this negative will cancel out the negative, therefore the number will become positive. The square root of 58 will cancel out the square root of 58, so we'll be left with positive 10 over 6. Now 10 and 6 have a common factor of 2, therefore the final answer is gonna be 5/3 when simplified. There you have it.